So at the end of the day, you've got to really remember that if you've got no money or you don't have the money that you really want to have in order for you to live your best life, to spend some, to save some, to tithe some, that sort of thing, to invest some, what are you doing about it? Because again, there's a great quote that says, for things to change, you must change and you must be the one that changes them.
Are you frustrated watching your hard-earned money ride the knee-jerking Wall Street roller coaster? Are you looking to diversify into alternate investments and set them on autopilot to achieve financial freedom? It's time to learn the ways of the wealthy. It's time to think outside the stocks with your host, Madhvi Jain, an immigrant from India and ex-IT professional who will bring you industry experts to illustrate a passive and holistic financial approach to build not just passive income, but also your generational wealth. Madhvi is on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time and 1,000 more to go. Are you going to be part of this vision? And now, without further ado, here is the host of Think Outside the Stocks, Madhvi Jain.
Hey, welcome back to another episode with Think Outside the Stocks. I am your host Madhvi Jain, and today I'm going to share a secret with you. A secret enemy, in fact, which I had within myself, which stopped me. Even though I had this information, these tools and techniques, but it was stopping me to take that first step towards the success. And that secret enemy was no one but me, myself, and my mindset. And this is one person who helped me to get over that mindset. And I am so excited to have him here actually today. Coach T is the one who helped me to break through that mindset, the belief systems that I had, and take that first step. Coach T, welcome to Think Outside the Stocks.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, I know your story intimately as we work together, but yeah, buckle up. This is going to be a great show.
Yes, absolutely. And as we are sharing that, how did I get over that secret enemy? And Coach T is going to throw some light on here. But Coach, I am so grateful to have you here on my podcast and to share you. It's kind of a secret thing I have with you, and I'm sharing this with my listeners today, my audience today. And I actually have a great news to share with my audience that I haven't shared with them. And I want to do it with you because your presence means just so much to me. So the great news is that we have been top 3% globally on podcasts. And that's not just based on the downloads, but how people are listening. So audience and listeners, I'm just so grateful to you because you are the one, each one of you have made this happen for us. You have been listening to it diligently, being with me on this journey together. So I am so grateful. So Coach, that's an exciting news I wanted to share. It's about 3.5 million podcasts globally, and we are the top 3% in that.
That is phenomenal. Congratulations. And again, it goes to show you that there's an audience out there that really needs to hear what you have to share and what your guests have to share. Because I'll tell you this, Madhvi, the world is sped up so fast. There's so much coming at us that it would make sense for people to listen to a great show like this to try to get perspective, try to figure out, best practices. What are other people seeing or hearing or feeling? And kudos to you. That's a huge reach, and it's going to get even bigger and better as we move forward. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Coach T. And with that, I would like to introduce you formally. I like the 3 fun facts about my guest. And, you must be wondering that, yes, Coach T is a great coach, but let's just talk a little bit about him, right? So 3 fun facts about Coach T. Coach T has done this coaching for over 10 years. He has helped clients, especially in real estate realm, with doctors and many more, to break through, to take that first step, to challenge that mindset. And he has helped about $25 billion of real estate portfolio with his clients, right? So that's incredible, Coach T. And together, I think so far he has about 30,000 plus hours of coaching. With his one-on-one mentoring, with his group coaching. That's tremendous, Coach. That's a huge number. I just cannot imagine how many minds have you impacted with that. And lastly, the third fact is that he has worked with the giant, none other than Tony Robbins. So he has, he has, started his journey with him, and he has been helping tremendous amount of people. Now, by the way, Coach T, I'm, one of the fire walker myself. And
Yes.
that's when I realized that, your mindset could do anything that you set your mind to. Firewalk, for the listeners who do not know, Coach, if you go to, and you're aware of this, that if you go to Tony Robbins event and there is a firewalk, you walk on fiery coals. And there is no blisters, there is nothing happens. And that was me, my husband, my daughter. We all did the firewalk. And that's the power of mind, what you can do it. And why I say that, right? Because I think, Coach, what happens is that mindset becomes one of that intangible thing that you cannot put a finger to. You have your education, you have your soft skill, communication, presentation, and everybody thinks that, hey, that's what is contributing to my success. But that's what I want to challenge today for our listeners, right? So let's talk about that, Coach. Why do you think that mindset is the most important thing, even though we can't just put a finger to it?
Well, it's such a great question. And, you referenced Tony Robbins, and I had the good fortune to work with and for Tony for half a decade, working with everybody from all walks of life, husbands, wives, business professionals, millionaires, billionaires, sports heroes. And you know what was really great about working there is I started to see patterns, Matt V, where, I could see what allowed people to go out there being really successful, both personally and professionally. And then what was it that held people back from exploding their results? And it all boiled down to one thing, mindset, right? And that's why Tony's got that great quote that success is 80% mindset and 20% mechanics or what you do. So as a high performance coach and business strategist myself, helping, like you said, 30,000 different clients around the world. And I mean around the world. I mean, I've got clients in the US, Canada, where I'm from, the UK, Italy, Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, even Australia. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you live or how old you are or, what race you are or what your education is. We're always coming up against this 3-pound mass between our ears called our brain, because it's designed to wear on one thing only, and that is to keep us safe. So anytime we might do something outside of our safety zone or outside of our comfort zone, it can be daunting. And that's where I come in, and I love it. And it's my passion helping people all over the planet, move through any resistance to really break free and go out there and have an extraordinary life. What do you think of that?
That is wonderful. Very well put, Coach. And it's so essential to set that resistance that we have in our mind, set that apart, right? And I typically say I'm on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time and thousands more to go. And you have enabled me to kind of remove that doubt in my mindset. So when you are impacting, these thousands of people, and they are going and impacting these thousands of families and, causing that kind of a ripple impact, your mission is much bigger. And I have tremendous respect for what you have started in like one mindset at a time, right? Doing that, making that difference in the entire world. So that impact is tremendous. So I'm grateful on behalf of everybody that you have served and helped to do that.
Thank you very much. And it's not for the faint of heart because, like I said, a lot of people, do what they're familiar with. We call it the law of familiarity. And because the human brain has anywhere from 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of the same subconscious or conscious thoughts we're having today are the same thoughts we had yesterday or the day before and the day before, we tend to make decisions from the past instead of stepping into what we call the present, that is now, and really, checking in with what is that resistance or what are my beliefs, what are my values, what are my rules? And if we're not building on those today, you know what? We can't create what we call the predictable future. So to make this very clear, we live in 3 paradigms. One is the past, one is the present, and one can be the predictable future. And what I do is I help people, go from where they have been to where they are today, and then create a roadmap, a recipe, or blueprint for what's possible as we move forward. And it's a lot of fun as well, because different people have different beliefs, different values, different rules, different upbringings, that sort of thing. And so I think podcasts like this, specifically you and yours, are really here to get people out of the familiar past. Not that it's good or bad or right or wrong, but to step into the now, step into the present, to see what's possible to create that predictable future. What do you think?
Incredible, Coach T. And this is what I realized, right? That I was made up of a lot of belief systems, actually. And what happens is we are born in this world, we kind of are like a sponge, right? We absorb absolutely whatever we bring in, right? Around us, our parents, our surroundings, our friends, our family, and much more. We absorb something knowingly. We create our value system, very, very important. And we absorb something unknowingly. And that's what is the biggest hindrance in our success, right? We become the biggest enemy, biggest obstacle for us. So let's talk through that, that belief system that we kind of create. You helped me tremendously to kind of get over that belief system. And one of the belief system is that the relationship with money. And you helped me to break through that. And it's not about how much money you have, but how do you treat your money and kind of creating that momentum of money and not suffocating it, right? So can you help our audience to understand and change, if you could, change that relationship with money that they have today?
Well, I love that so much. And again, most people don't have a good relationship with money. They think that a lot of the stuff their parents or their grandparents said, like money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, or money is the root of all evil. That was your parents or your grandparents' time, where we're in a different time today, where if you're not rechecking in with your relationship with money, you're probably carrying those beliefs forward. And, as a high performance coach and as an investor myself, because I invest in a ton of different things, all over this beautiful blue planet, I've had to recreate my belief about what money even is. So at the end of the day, money is simply a tool that we literally amass or create from adding value to someone or something. So I'll say that again. Money is a byproduct of adding value to someone or something. And when we get that money, I've got a core belief that some of it is going to be used for living expenses. Some of it is going to be used for vacations. Some of it is going to be used for investing. And some of it is going to be used for tithing or to helping other people on this planet.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, you've got to really remember that if you've got no money, or you don't have the money that you really want to have in order for you to live your best life, to spend some, to save some, to tithe some, that sort of thing, to invest some, what are you doing about it? Because again, there's a great quote that says, for things to change, you must change, and you must be the one that changes them. So I think this whole conversation starts with, what are your beliefs? What are your values? What are your rules with money? And are you using something from your parents or grandparents when now would be a good time to create some change there? What do you think?
I love that. Money is a tool, and to understand that what you can do it, and especially the last portion that you mentioned, to give, to kind of give back where we come from, to give to people who are not as fortunate as us. And with that, I'm going to lead to my second question to you. Today, we are talking to, most of these are passive investors, W-2 earners, maybe the tech employees or the doctors, physicians as well. They get really, really comfortable in the comfort zone that they have, right? Though there is a burnout associated, they get really comfortable. They think that this is what I am born to do. This is what, I'm supposed to do. But really understanding the impact that you can do to this world, and understanding what your purpose, or I would say, what's your reason to exist in this world, it got to be beyond the work that we are doing, just that W-2 job that we are doing, right? So how do they ask that right question? And as Bono said, it's not the answers that we had wrong, we had the questions wrong. So we got to ask the right question. So my question to the audience is, and maybe help me with this, Coach T, how do they ask themselves that questions, that what is my purpose, the reason to exist on this earth?
That is so good. And again, I'm going to help people with that right now, because my belief is we weren't just put here to work. In fact, I've got a motto that I says we were put here to learn, to love, to laugh, to share, to grow, and to help other people do the same. But if you think you're just here to work a W-2, you're really fooling yourself, because again, it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution really that people learned that we were heading off to a 9-to-5 job, or we were going to go work in a factory, or we're going to go work for someone else. Because at the end of the day, we were all born entrepreneurial. We were all born with the same opportunity to go out there. And sure, in the early years, we were farmers. We grew wheat, we raised cattle, we grew vegetables, all of those things. And then ultimately we started to go work for other people. So I think the opportunity is for you to really check in with yourself and say, do you believe that that's just as good as it's going to get, that you're working as hard as you are to make whatever amount you're making? Because I'm sure we've got people listening to this podcast that are making a little bit, some are making the average wage, and some are making more than that. But who are you beyond the W-2? Who are you beyond what you've been doing to step into really asking the question, which is, what is your why? What is your why? Why are you really here? What are you really here to do? Because again, once you say that, yes, we've got to, pay the bills and we've got to have some sort of income, whether that's as a W-2 employee or an entrepreneur or maybe a hybrid, what's preventing you from going beyond that? Investing in real estate, setting up your own infinite banking, giving yourself the opportunity to create more and leverage more so that you can do more, be more, and have more while on this earth. And I'm telling you, we weren't here just to trade time for dollars. We're all put here to literally use the term leverage to create even more for ourselves, our families, and our communities. And that's why I love what you're doing to bring people, the insight, the information, and even some opportunities to say, okay, Trevor, but what does that look like? Where would I put my money where I won't lose it, or it won't get taken, or it won't get taxed, or it won't get, out the window? And that's really what this conversation is about. It's thinking about, what are you really here to be, do, and have? And really, for me, it comes down to one question. Are you interested in creating that for yourself and your family, or are you committed to creating that? Because if you're interested, you'll do what's convenient. Whereas if you're committed to figuring it out, you'll do whatever it takes to figure out your why or your mission statement or your purpose, and then lean into it from there. What do you think, Matvi?
Interested and committed, my goodness, that one step itself has such a huge leap into it. And that's really, really important because, we have been talking about on Think Outside the Stock podcast and education about infinite banking, about passive income through real estate, and W-2 earners, people working in tech, doctors, physicians alike, they think that this is what I'm supposed to do. There's so much fear in their mind about being an entrepreneur per se. And actually, I think that being a real estate investor passively first, that's a first step to entrepreneurship. So if you are set in the mindset and you're telling yourself that, okay, I'm supposed to do this W-2 job, I'm supposed to just work and retire finally, this is actually your pathway to the entrepreneurship, right? And when you are talking about this strong why is that why important? So I think that that's like almost like an anchor, right? If you are flying a kite, for example, and if the thread just goes off, the kite is going to just wander in the sky. Even the big cruise ships need that anchor, the huge anchor, which kind of holds us at a position. It kind of questions ourselves that, why am I doing this? Why am I in this? What is it in for me, my family, and compounded to the entire world? What's that purpose behind it, right? So very well put, Coach T, that, I love that differentiation that you put it for our listeners. Now, beyond that, right? Okay, I want to invest in the real estate or be that, one-step entrepreneur. They have that goal in mind. They have the why in their mind for themselves, their family, etc. Now they also have the fear, right? There's that fear that's kind of an impostor syndrome. And it's that questioning that, oh, I'm going to probably fail at it, or I might lose the money, or this might happen, or that might happen, or maybe now I cannot do this because after this, then I will start doing it. I'm not able to do that. So they have this purpose and passion in mind. So maybe it's about starting a yoga studio. It might be about, just hiking, or even creating some kind of a philanthropy organization, right? So they want to go there, but they have that fear in mind. How do they address that fear in the belief system that's set inside them, that imposter syndrome that's set inside them?
Oh, well, you're singing from my song sheet, because that's what stops most people, right? It's really what we call the 3 universal modalities of fear. And I'll go through all 3 of them, and I think the listener will really find them familiar, as will you, because these are absolutely universal. Doesn't matter where you live, how old you are, what level of income you make. There's 3 things that hold people back from exploding their results. And you said the first one, it's really, they have got imposter syndrome. And with imposter syndrome comes, number 1, the fear of failure, right? It's almost like if I try to invest in something, I could fail. If I try to invest in, something I'm not familiar with, what if it doesn't work out? If I try to do this, what if I lose all my money? So number 1 is if I try, I could fail. That takes us to number 2, which is, well, what if people don't agree with me doing it? What if my spouse doesn't agree? What if my parents don't agree? What if my colleagues at work think I'm stupid for doing this, right? What are people going to think? So number 1 is the fear of failure. Now we've got number 2, the fear of criticism. That takes us to the third and final one, Matt V, which is called the fear of not being worthy of it. I'm not worthy of investing and making all this money. I should just be happy with the job I've got, or I should just be happy with the house I have, or I can at least put food on the table. And it's really a self-worth, self-wealth, and self-esteem issue where they just don't feel worthy of it. So if we recap those 3 things, and it all comes from imposter syndrome, it's really if I try, I could fail is number 1. People might not like my idea. They'll criticize me as 2. And I'm not worthy is really number 3. So what do we do with that? Well, here's what Coach T does, because I'm a big believer in the laws that govern this entire planet, just like you are. And if we think about the laws that govern everything, kind of like the law of gravity, right? If I drop this pen I'm holding, it's going to go down. You can't argue the law of gravity. Well, there's another law I'll introduce to the listener called the law of polarity. And the law of polarity is a law that decrees that you can't have one thing on this planet without the polar opposite also being available. So let me give you some examples, and then I'll tie it to the imposter syndrome, because you can't have day without night. You can't have black without white. You can't have masculine energy without feminine energy, and you can't have the North Pole without the South Pole. So what's that got to do with anything? Well, it's got everything to do with those 3 failures, because if you bring the law of polarity to investing, right, this is what it sounds like. If you go to number 1 and it says, if I try, I could fail. Well, it also means the other side of that is if I try, I could be successful. I could succeed. Or number 2, people might not like my idea, or they might criticize me. Well, what if the polar opposite's true and they go, wow, look at what you're doing. That's amazing. And maybe they invest in alongside of you, right? That would be amazing, because now we're, expanding things instead of contracting. Right. Or number 3, that whole I'm not worthy of it. Well, I'll tell you all this, that abundance is your birthright. You've got just as much opportunity to go out there and make money here as any other entrepreneur. And it's not about reinventing the wheel. This is about using tried and true practices, kind of like Matt V speaks about on all of these shows, as do her guests, where you get to take the guesswork out of it and literally remember that Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. So if it's worked for thousands upon tens of thousands of other people to grow their income and grow their net worth, it'll work for you, but not if you get stuck in that imposter syndrome or those 3 modalities of fear. What do you think of that one?
Abundance is your birthright. That's going to stick with me. You always have so many golden nuggets, Coach T. And abundance is your birthright. Oh my God, that's tremendous. And I'm a very numbers person, right? I look at things a little differently. When you're telling us about this, the 2 sides of the same coin, I'm thinking about the probability, right? The probability, if the listeners are challenging that, can I fail? What is the probability of you actually being successful at it, right? So I think that's tremendous. I love that, the way you put it. And, the 2 examples come to mind, actually, who had this out of the box kind of an idea, which people at the time thought it's crazy. And one is the Walt Disney, his idea about creating the Disney World. Nobody was lending him money, right? Because the idea of theme park, that seemed to be quite crazy at that times. And another one is Steve Jobs, right? Just because they stick to their ideas, even though it just looked absolutely crazy, and they actually made it happen. So you put your mind to it, you can make it happen. So listeners, if you have, other than that W-2 job, that purpose, that passion in your mind, this is your way of looking at things, that how can I succeed into that? What Coach T just said, those golden nuggets, just apply to that. Now, the next question I would ask you, right, Coach, that fear that they have, right? The fear, we give power to that fear, right? It's what stops us from creating those opportunities and taking that first step, right? So setbacks are natural. So there's going to be setbacks that's going to happen, probability wise, maybe lower. What would you do? What would you advise our listeners when they have a setback? How can they actually take the power back from their state setback and treat that as a powerful, powerful learning? How can they do that?
Well, I love that question as well. And if you really read great books, like the book Think and Grow Rich, there's a great quote in that book that says that there is no failure, there's only feedback. Right? And I just love that quote. There is no failure. There's only feedback, because you know what? We're human beings, and there's going to be good times and there's going to be not so good times. Sometimes we're going up the peak of the mountain. Sometimes we're going into the valley of the mountain. That's the law of polarity again. But what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So I'm a big believer that if somebody has fear, you know what? You've got to look at other times in your life where you've had fear, but you were able to get on the other side of it. I call it going back to the future. And maybe some of you remember that old movie from the 80s called Back to the Future, where, you know what, sometimes we got to go back to a time in our life, like maybe you thought you weren't going to be able to get your driver's license and you had fear that you were going to fail and you got it. Or maybe you had fear that you weren't going to get into college and you got it. You got into college. Or maybe you had fear that you would never meet your significant other and you met them. Or maybe you thought you'd never be able to birth some children and raise kids, and now you got 2 or 3 of them. So at the end of the day, guys, sometimes you got to go back and find some other times where, what if it's true that right now you don't think you could start a side hustle in addition to your W-2, or you don't think that you could invest in real estate, or you don't think you could, have your own infinite banking policy and start, banking on yourself. What if those were the same things that you could move through like a hot knife through butter by believing in yourself and then having a roadmap or a recipe or a blueprint to follow? Because I'm telling you, there is no failure. There's only feedback. And I've got another really powerful quote that I'll use for myself sometimes, that a setback is a setup for a comeback. And I just love that. I'll say it again. A setback is a setup for a comeback. That's the universe's way of getting us to see, how bad do you want this? Are you going to be defeated by it? Or are you going to get up, dust yourself off, and see that you've built tremendous muscle to move forward on it, kind of like you have? So I'm super proud of, the way you've shown up and the way I continue to help other people show up, because I'm telling you, these are really powerful concepts. What do you think?
Tremendous, Coach T. And this was my biggest takeaway from our sessions, right? To kind of challenge that. And I love your analogy of back to the future, I love that. And quite often, I think I have shared this with you. What I feel, and I challenge people, is it's about a bow and arrow analogy, right? Very similar. That sometimes you have to pull back, and that pull back is actually not a negative, because now you are setting a precision. Now you're setting a speed. You cannot have the precision or the speed unless you pull back, get ready for it, and now sprint with the precision and target what you want to achieve, right? So even, especially in today's time, it feels like a setback. We are sitting on a trifecta of inflation, high interest rate, and recession looming, right? A lot of fear in people's investors' mind. And they're thinking that I cannot take that step. I cannot invest. That feels like a setback for them. But that's when I think that this is the time for you to educate yourself, be ready, look around and see what you can do, or rather what you cannot do. Look at things. You just need to know where to look, right? For example, if you cannot do the investing, look at the infinite banking system and look where to find these opportunities and do that. So that setback, the way you explained it, you can actually use it for your advantages. I love that. And with that, my next question would be, and I often see people doing that, right? People look at people who are successful and they think that, yes, I want to start doing what they did. I want to start creating a path that they have created for themselves, but I'm going to do it myself, right? And this is that reinventing the wheel, and nothing wrong in it. You create a path that is not traveled. There is a lot of worth to that saying, but do you always have to do that? Why should they kind of think about not recreating the wheel? Coach T, help us with that.
Well, again, it goes back to a quote I said earlier that my coach and mentor, Tony Robbins, uses at Business Mastery. So we talked about going to a UPW and walking on fire, right? Tony's also got other amazing things like Date with Destiny or Business Mastery or Wealth and Life Mastery, where, his famous quote is success leaves clues. And what I love about that quote is, for a lot of people that think that they've got to figure it all out on their own, someone else is already doing something that you want to do ahead of you. So whether that's opening up a coffee shop, starting a yoga studio, investing in real estate, starting a podcast, every single thing that's probably on your heart, there's someone else doing, unless you're one of those true inventors or you're somebody like Elon Musk that wants to put people on Mars, that plays at a much higher level. So I always go back to the fact that, having a recipe or a roadmap or a blueprint or even a GPS can help us go further faster and turn what we call decades into days. I don't want it to take your listeners 10 years to figure this stuff out when they can turn decades into days by understanding that somebody like you or some of the people that are on your show, have been there, done that, and have failed faster, which has allowed them to learn the lessons to help other people not, fail the same way. So oftentimes, again, the roadmap, the recipe, the blueprint, the GPS is really the fastest way to expedite you getting to what we call the 5 freedoms. And the first of the 5 freedoms is financial freedom. Like, let's be honest, let's get that handled. Let's make some money, because if you're making money, it means you're adding value to someone or something along the way. Number 2 is time freedom, right? Because once you've got financial freedom, you move more towards time freedom. Spend more time with your family, your friends, that sort of thing. That leads to number 3, which is what I call geographical freedom, right? Because once you've got financial freedom and time freedom, you can get in an airplane and go to London, go to Paris, go to India, go to, Australia, go everywhere you want. And there's 2 more. So after financial freedom, time freedom, and geographical freedom, which is something I know everybody craves, number 4 is what I call freedom to impact. Freedom to impact. That means that once you've got some money, time, and you can go anywhere, now you can help other people. You can do some mission work. You can work for charities. You can do something that helps this beautiful world we live in, help humanity. And that takes us to number 5, Matt V, which is what we call freedom of relationships. And freedom of relationships is where you get to choose who you spend more time with. And I'm telling you, a high tide lifts all boats. And once you start hanging out with the Matt V's of the world, like we were just at a conference together in the US, great to see you again, and absolutely chat with you and everyone else around you. When you get to hang out with really cool people that are here on purpose and with purpose, making business and life better for everyone, it's a pretty fun playground to be in. So that's why following a recipe, a roadmap, and a blueprint, turning decades into days, is going to get you closer to those 5 freedoms. So I'll recap them one more time. Financial freedom, time freedom, geographical freedom, freedom to impact humanity, and yes, freedom to hang out with other like-minded people. What do you think of that one, Matt V?
Love that. And you have summed it up so well, turning that decades into days. They don't have to wait the kids to kind of create this success path for themselves. And the 5 freedoms that you listed, tremendous. And this is the reason I love what I'm doing and love being in this world, because everybody here is so mutual. There is so much that we add to each other's success. Together, we can do much more things than, single-handedly we could achieve something, right? So I love those freedoms and love that you have summed it up for our listeners. If you were to give them one last advice to take that step, what action that they can take today so that they can start moving towards that converting decades to days and achieving this 5 freedoms, what would you say that, the one step that they must take today?
Well, the one step or the call to action is to continue to listen to podcasts like this one, or read a book, or find a coach, or find a mentor. Find somebody that's already doing something you want to do and start surrounding yourself with them. Because, I'm a big believer that, knowledge is potential power, right?
Yes.
Knowledge is not enough. I mean, if it was just the knowledge alone, every librarian in the US would be a multimillionaire, and they're not. It's the application of the knowledge. So once you read a book, you hear a podcast, you go to a meetup, you hear about this thing called infinite banking. What is that? Don't just learn it, talk to somebody who can help you get into it, or get into real estate, or get into some, money-making opportunity. Because remember, if you don't, you're literally living in what I call your small self, or, your lower self, than stepping into what we call your higher self, or your best self, or even your future self, right? Because again, there's a gap between where you are with your finances and where you want to be. But there's also an opportunity for a huge gain. That is reading, listening, applying, finding mentorship, finding coaches, finding a Matt V for you, anything like that that can turn those decades into days is really the call to action.
Love that. And Coach T, I'm so grateful that you have helped me to do that and to kind of create the best version of myself. I thought that I was comfortable and I was, doing the best in the scenarios that I was in. But to challenge myself, to challenge that comfort zone, come out of it, be in the people in the room where you are not the smartest person in the room. That's what has helped me where I am today. So, I'm still not the best version of myself, and I will continue challenging myself. And thank you so much for instilling that seed in me. And listeners, if that's one thing that you want to take away, please instill this seed in you today and keep challenging yourselves. Just keep questioning yourself. Are you the best version of yourself? So with that, I would love to have this conversation going on. But Coach, we are kind of coming to our last few segments. And my next segment actually is something that I would be really grateful if you could share. This is the segment where I ask my experts, my guests, and ask them a question so that my listeners could get a help from it and I could get a help. That how do you, Coach T, think outside the stocks? And in a sense that what's the different opportunities that you invest in? What are the different things that you do to guard the wealth that you have created? And I always say it's not about growing your wealth, but it's about growing, preserving, protecting, and passing your generational wealth. We got to create systems around it. We have to pass the knowledge of the wealth also to the next generation. So help us with that. How do you think outside the stocks?
Well, thank you for asking. And again, I've been investing for a number of years now. I mean, gosh, I won't tell my age, but I've been on this planet for, just over 5 decades. So that should give people a hint. And I'm telling you, I've, achieved a phenomenal level of success, but I've also failed. I've also had some stuff that has not gone to my liking. But, as I said, we get up, we dust ourselves off, we check and try to figure out, what caused it or what went wrong or where did we not do our due diligence or, any of that thing. And we get back up and we've got more wisdom, more knowledge, more passion to get out and do it again. And for me, the number one vehicle I use by far is real estate. I literally started investing in real estate 20 years ago, and that was more so in single family homes, condos, duplexes, fourplexes. And fast forward to today, I don't do any of that anymore, but I invest in multifamily syndications. And what I love about multifamily is, we're becoming a renter's nation and people need places to live. And for a lot of people, especially with these interest rates, home ownership is out of reach. So I think as we continue to invest in markets like Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, Nashville, Colorado, I'm seeing tremendous growth of my wealth through that vehicle called multifamily syndication. But I also love diversification. So I've invested in self-storage. In fact, had a wonderful project in Key West, Florida, with some good clients of mine where we made a lot of money in Florida on that. We've gone so far as to invest in a 1,900 acre hemp farm in Colorado. We've, diversified into buying into resorts in Costa Rica and even investing as far away as Australia. So I think real estate is a wonderful opportunity for people to pool their money together and literally create a plan to go out there and buy something that's going to appreciate and going to provide cash flow as well. In addition to that, I'm a big believer in banking on yourself. So infinite banking is a tool that if you haven't checked out, why would you make other people rich when you could make yourself rich through this concept? Right. And if you want to talk to somebody who knows that inside out, upside down, talk to Matt V directly, because she can give you the knowledge and the wisdom and the passion to get that party started, sooner than later. There's some other things I've invested in, like the stock market. Now, truth be told and transparently, I invest very little in the stock market. I think it's like going to Vegas and gambling for the most part, where one day you can be up and the next day you can be down, and then those downs continue to be downs. It's just not as much fun for me. So again, different strokes for different folks. I have invested in some, tech stocks and that sort of thing, but by my belief system, I think there's other superior investments. That's why I like to think outside the stocks. And then ultimately at the end of the day, I do dabble in a little bit of crypto, right? I think that there's a little bit of a changing of the guard where smart contracts and blockchain technology are coming just like the internet came, the automobile came, the cell phone came. And it's still early days of, not being regulated properly and not being adopted like it's going to be. But a few years down the road, I think that there's going to be something there. So in all transparency, that's kind of my story. But number one thing I would absolutely do is check in with yourself. What interests you? What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? And then find somebody that can help you bridge the gap in terms of your knowledge. And then make sure that there's somebody that can also help you take that intelligent and inspired action. So let me break that down, because intelligent means smart, whereas inspired means you get to do it. You don't have to do it, but you go get to do it. And I love taking intelligent and inspired action on a lot of things in my life. So I'll throw it over to you for that. What do you think?
Intelligent and inspired action. I love that. And what I love about you and what you have spoken so far is I hope our listeners are sitting down with a pen and paper, because there are so many actionable things that they can take it down from you. And first of all, thank you so much for being so transparent about sharing your blueprint with us, because as you said, success leaves clues, right? So we can take a little bit peek into your success, what you have done, and take a little bit clues from it. And diversification is a thing that I believe in it too, right? The think outside the stocks. We actually have a diversified fund, which is mainly real estate now, and investors can still pick and choose their investments. It's not a blind pool. They can pick and choose their investments too. So thank you so much for sharing that. And with that, I'm gonna jump to the next section. Actually, listeners who are listening to this episode and would love to know, how do I reach Coach T? How can I make Coach T my Coach T, right? I'm sharing a very personal thing with you listeners today. So how do they get in touch with you if they want to be in this journey of self-exploration and challenging their limiting beliefs? How do they get in touch with you, Coach T?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. And yes, a lot of people like what they're hearing, and they'll want to hear a little bit more, or perhaps even, want to do some work together. Then the best way to really reach out to me is through my website. And you can find me at trevormcgregor.com. I'm sure you'll have that in the show notes, trevormcgregor.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn and connect with me through there. But I also have something really unique, and I've started my own private podcast called Rich Beyond Belief. And a private podcast is a really unique way to come in and learn all of my high-tech methodologies, distinctions, and strategies in a simple 8-week program. So you get an audio every week for 8 weeks. You can download it on your smartphone. And if you're interested in checking out things like goal setting, goal achievement, time management mastery, how to become a master of influence and really take your identity to the next level, just head over to the same website, trevormcgregor.com. Scroll down and there's a little video of me talking about the Rich Beyond Belief program. There's a very, very small fee for the program. But again, I really believe sometimes that, you know what, if you put some money into it, you'll listen to it rather than create something that just sits on your phone. And with that small fee, we give a little bit of money to charity with that. And I'm telling you, you're going to get 8 weeks of my top training in that Rich Beyond Belief program. So for anyone that might want to check that out, head over to the website. Otherwise, I'm oftentimes at different real estate conferences. I'm on a ton of podcasts. I'm on a ton of shows. But I'm really here because my passion is really about, getting your own self out of the way. Let's really remove any roadblocks or obstacles that are preventing you from stepping into your future self, your best self, and your highest self, because I'm telling you, the journey of 1,000 miles really does begin with your next step.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I did not know that you had that podcast, and I'm going to myself look into it. And listeners, if you are listening to this, that program, that podcast Coach T is talking about, it's going to be worth every penny. So, go to that website and get that downloaded now. So now with that, Coach T, we are going to be in our last segment, and this is actually kind of a fun segment where it's I call it a rapid fire segment. Quick questions and 30 to 60-second answers. That's all it is. But this is just kind of a fun that we would get to have if we were in person together, right? So are you ready for the rapid fire?
I am ready. Let's do this. I love it.
Absolutely. So my first question in rapid fire that we talk about belief systems and people's belief system, I would love to know what is the biggest belief system that you had, that you challenged and you got over, and you became this Coach T today, and you are doing this for so many thousands of people. So what was the biggest belief that you challenged?
Yeah, it was a belief that we could be, do, and have something that was on our heart. Because I believe that the universe puts something on our heart, and it's a desire that we're meant to go after. And for me, even growing up, I was always the captain of the soccer team or the hockey team. I just loved helping people. I loved bringing like-minded people together for a common goal. And there was a time where I didn't think that, I was a very good coach, or why would anyone listen to me, or I'm just a kid from Canada, right? And even though I have a business background and I've got a personal growth background and a real estate background, we're always faced with limiting beliefs that we don't know enough, or we're not old enough, or we're not educated enough. And that's a bunch of BS. And BS, we all know what it stands for, but for me, it stands for your belief system. So I had to shift my belief system to, instead of saying I'm not enough, which is selfish, to saying I'm going to go out there and help one person. And then I'm going to go help another person, and then another and another, and then it compounds. And next thing you know, you've done well over 30,000 coaching calls. And that's an actual statistic. That's why you'll hear my voice is a little bit raspy. But I literally got through that limiting belief by not making it about me and making it about helping other people. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I'm so grateful on behalf of the entire community that you got over that challenging belief yourself, so you could help and have that rippling impact. So I'm so grateful. Couple of more questions that, one, and I know that you are kind of a person who enjoys and relishes life, every bit of it. So would love for you to share with us one most beautiful memory of your life that when you close your eyes, it just lights up your mind.
Oh, wow. Well, we could be here for hours because I've got so many. But yeah, we're blessed beyond, belief to really, have a wonderful family. I'm married to a beautiful wife, Lisa. I've got 3 beautiful boys, Matthew, Mitchell, and Maxwell. Yes, we went with the M theme. It goes with McGregor. So I think, just really raising great children, having a wonderful family, and really being grateful for all of the travel we do. We're really big into travel. In fact, I'm coming to you from Australia today. Even though I was born and raised in Canada, oftentimes we'll be in Australia, we'll be in Italy, we'll be in the UK. We've been in Hong Kong, we'll take an Alaskan cruise. And I really think it's about, working towards those 5 freedoms, the financial freedom, the time freedom, the geographical freedom. And then, yes, freedom to impact the planet and freedom to hang out with other like-minded people. That has kind of been the fire that we've stoked and thrown some logs on. And what used to be kindling, because we really came from nothing, is now a beautiful bonfire of us going out there and living this beautiful life and helping others. So that's what I would say is my best answer, is having a beautiful family and being grateful to travel and see this beautiful blue planet.
Love that, absolutely love it. And my last question will be that one tip that you would provide our listeners today to be in that peak state of mind, that happy state of mind, and whenever there's that gloomy day or gloomy thought that comes over, to get over that, what would that be?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit it out of the park to answer that. So it's really not one thing, it's 3 things. It's really what I call the trifecta. And if people want to jot this down, and it's almost like if you were to draw a triangle and then put each of these 3 words on each side of the triangle. And at the very bottom, the first one you must go to is gratitude, because I'm a big believer in what's wrong is always available, but so is what's right when you look for it. So stepping into more gratitude, stepping into what's good in your world, stepping into your health, your family, the roof over your head, the food in your refrigerator. Because I'm telling you, when we have an attitude of gratitude, it's something we call the ultimate state of receivership, where we're going to get more good things to flow into our life. So number 1, or the first part of the triangle, is gratitude. The second one up on the upper left is what we call forgiveness. And forgiveness is where you forgive yourself for anything that maybe you've kind of dropped the ball on, or forgive your spouse, or forgive your kids, or your aging parents, or your neighbors. Because I think we all run around holding too many grudges, and we harbor that negative energy instead of letting that go and using that energy for the greater good. So if we can step into more, number 1, gratitude, and number 2, more, forgiveness, that's something that I think is very powerful. And then we top it off on the third side of the triangle with what I call total self-care. Total self-care. When are you going to do something nice for yourself instead of running around helping everyone else? And that could be having a massage, having a bubble bath, spending time in nature, warming up with a great book and a cup of tea by the fire, and really reading something that you've been wanting to read for a long time. Because when you combine all 3, Matt V, the gratitude, the forgiveness, and the total self-care, it absolutely gets you to feel different, you vibrate different, you show up different, your energy's different, and you really feel like going out there and living a better life. What do you think of those 3 things?
You summed up so well, Coach T, and I think this is one thing that, everybody's listening. It's so helpful for them, right? The forgiveness, it's so important. The being grateful about it, being grateful, looking back in your life, what you're grateful about, and also that self-care. I know you have taught me to have my cup full and kind of overflow before I started helping others. If I have an absolutely empty cup, I cannot really be of service to others. So with that, I think, it's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for laying out this blueprint for the listeners, for giving them that actionable plan, and to be the gatekeeper of their peak state, that they can choose to be in that constant state so that they can become a best version of themselves. So listener, if you have listened to this episode, please create your plan now and take that action and take that one baby step ahead in a positive direction. That's really, really important, because what's important for you today is going to be 50% less important tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So the time to take action is not tomorrow, not even today. Actually, the time to take action is now. So Coach T, I am so grateful for you to be here and sharing this tremendous mindset opportunity with our listeners. Thank you so much. And it's always great to talk to you.
Well, thank you again for having me on. Keep up the great work, and God bless everyone as we all move forward. Have fun. Let's go.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Think Outside the Stocks podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe. Madhvi is on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time, with 1,000 more to go. We hope you will be a part of this vision. Please join our growing community And to get your journey started, visit thinkoutsideTheStocks.com to download your free guide on active income with passive real estate investments. If you learned something new, please share it with one person today. And if you have 60 seconds, please leave us an Apple review to help us reach more people like you. Tune in for the next episode.